Hello again, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Adaptive Podcast. We are here for episode 18, and we have special guest Radji Barrett with us tonight of Radji Barrett Jiu Jitsu Academy. Of course, if you guys have been tuning in before tonight, you know that the podcast would not be possible without Radji and his academy. He's the inspiration behind Adaptive itself. Make sure you check him out at Radji Barrett Jiu Jitsu on Instagram. And check out his website, RadjiBarrettJiu-Jitsu.com. You can check out the schedule, check more out about the academy and everything, and learn all the stuff that we have there. Connect that phone to those AirPods. Sorry. I think that's where the echo's coming from.
Do it now!
So, again, we're really glad to have you guys. We see we have tons of live viewers tonight.
What?
So thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you guys comment live so we can get your comments up on the screen and we can interact with you. And, you know, without further ado, I will introduce Radji. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, my friend.
Of course, a pleasure.
Yep.
Pleasure to join you guys.
Of course, we're here with Eli and Ed, too.
Forgot that guy.
That audio sounds a little weird.
Is your mic open on the laptop?
Maybe.
Make sure this phone he's on is muted, too.
Yep.
Yeah, mic's muted.
Okay.
Radji sounds good. I sound weird.
You sound fine.
I'm good.
Maybe shut that off. You think? Oh no, now I sound great.
All right, we're all good.
Fine.
Yeah, we're good now.
It's fine.
Thanks everybody for bearing in. So again, for those of you just tuning in, we're here with Radji Barrett of Radji Barrett Jiu Jitsu Academy, a good friend of ours, our professor, and the inspiration behind the podcast. So thanks again for joining us.
Of course. Pleasure. Been watching you guys, your podcast so far. I've been looking forward to coming on, so appreciate the invite.
Yeah,
Nice.
man.
For sure.
It's fucking awesome having you on.
Yeah. We're really excited to have you here and kind of go through your origin story, what started everything for you. And we probably won't get to all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The story is very long and you guys are going to want to hear all of it. All the details.
And if you got to come back in a couple weeks, I'm sure, we'll have the beer. So.
Oh, absolutely. All I got to do is check with my wife. That's all.
Yeah. Awesome. So why don't we get started? Radji, so thank you again, from me too,
Course,
not just for guiding us in jiu-jitsu, but you're a very good friend. And
Thank you.
think you help us reflect not just about jiu-jitsu, but we have really good conversations about life.
Feelings mutual.
Yeah, man. So why don't you kind of start us, as a youngster, as a young whippersnapper.
A young whippersnapper.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of been involved in some kind of art, in the art form. Come from a very musical family. So I started as a young kid in music, playing music. My grandmother was my piano teacher for many years. Played trumpet in elementary and middle school. Eventually played bass and guitar in a band in high school. So music was.
You were in a band?
I was in a band. Kind of like a hardcore band, believe it or not. Our name was AWOL.
Nice.
So
cool.
yeah, it was pretty cool. A couple guys that I was friends with.
It's like punk rockish,
punk rockish, hardcore,
Old school hardcore.
Yeah, Sam, the
Early
lead
90s.
singer, was basically just getting in the mic and just screaming as loud as he could.
Typical
little screamo.
hardcore.
Yeah.
That's hardcore. Yeah, typical hardcore.
That's cool.
Yeah, man. In third grade, I was in the American Boy Choir School. I had auditioned. It was a private school in Princeton, and one of the most famous boy choirs in the world. It's pretty much the American Boy Choir and the Vienna Boy Choir in Italy at the time. Sure, there's more. Philadelphia is known for really good choir, being an all-black choir also. So I was there for my third grade year. I was actually the youngest student there by 2 years. The youngest was fifth grade. I was in third. But I had a great audition. I had one of the highest voices in the school. Got to perform at Carnegie Hall in third grade at 7 years old. I sang One Hand, One Heart from West Side Story. I got to sing a solo. It was pretty amazing experience for a young kid to be on a world-renowned stage.
That's awesome. I never knew that about you. That's really cool,
bro. Multi-talented.
That's crazy. Then puberty hit.
Yeah, exactly. There was no first surprise.
I got kicked out.
That's great.
That's funny.
So music has always been a part of my life. My mom's a jazz singer, was a professional musician my entire life. Worked in the post office in the morning and then sang at night. So I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. So I always used to say that she was kind of like a second mother to me. The two of them raised me. My dad wasn't around, so it was my mom and grandma. So they supported the music, endeavors, really anything that I wanted. I was an only child, so it was easiest to have all the focus on me.
So in your youth, you really didn't do anything as far as like martial arts or anything?
No,
like that?
not at all. When I was in elementary school, there were some kids that did kung fu. So I used to watch Saturday cartoons. Every kid watched kung fu. I used to want those little
With David Carradine, kung fu.
Yeah. I used to watch that, and then it was like
that
Kung
show.
Fu Theater. It was like on Saturdays or Sundays,
okay.
after normal cartoons and stuff.
With
I
dubs?
wanted those black slippers.
They had actual
with the
yeah.
thin plastic bottom.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Karate shoes. That's what
I didn't even know they had actual academies for kung fu. That sounds.
Well, there was a guy. His name I don't remember his last name. His name was Rex, and he was some dude where I grew up. Outside of Heightstown. I grew up in Mercer County, before we moved to Princeton. And he was teaching kung fu, and I was like, I want to go do kung fu. And my mom's like, yeah, we can talk about it, and it just never materialized. My mom was very just non-violent, and she thought that that somehow would make
a gateway.
Martial arts equated to violence.
Yeah.
What was the cartoon? It was Hong Kong Fooey, faster than the human eye.
That's it.
That's what it is, right?
It's called Hong Kong Fooey.
Hong Kong Fooey.
Kong
What was it? An animal or was it?
I think it was a dog. I think Hong Kong
He was a
Fooey
dog,
looked
I
like
think,
a
yeah.
I've never
dog.
seen that.
Yeah,
Google him. Bring him up.
Yeah.
YouTube.
I'll
it's
find him.
really funny, and the theme music is
That's hilarious that you know the theme song.
I didn't do martial arts until my 20s either, man. My mom wouldn't let me. I remember she was reluctant to get me Mortal Kombat for crying out loud because they're talking about it in the news. It was. It's
Oh, really?
like a video game.
Well, my mom, fast forward many years later, when I was, fighting professionally, she actually came to one of my kickboxing matches out in Long Island, and she was totally horrified. She came with my cousin David. He was out from Washington State. I have a couple cousins that live out way out in Washington, 3 hours northwest of Seattle, out in San Juan Islands. It's the most beautiful, pristine nature, in the country. And he came out, and he was horrified too, but not nearly as much as my mom. She's used to watching me, swim in a pool and do non-violent things. So
that was your main athletic thing when you were younger, right?
Yeah, that started soon after I was in the boy choir. My grandmother taught me how to swim when I was 7. And then that next summer, that's hilarious. Hong Kong Fooey.
Why does it look? Okay.
Bro, it's actually a good cartoon. I remember when I was little watching this.
Your
Now
mom
I
didn't want you to
I
end
have
up
to go
like
look
this
for
guy.
Yeah.
It's a bad influence right there for children.
I have to go see that.
Racism at its finest.
I mean, how?
It's not racist because it's a dog.
I mean,
What kind of dog is he? He's got a mask too, like a bandit mask.
Yeah.
he's not like a caricature or
Yeah, how's it racist?
He's not
What are you talking
racist.
about?
And that's also not a gi. Where's the pants? He's wearing a robe.
Right, he's in a robe.
He's got no
It's like a
underwear on.
bathrobe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a gi. It's not a kimono. Yeah, he just came out of the shower.
That's great.
Some-
So what sports did you play when you were very young?
A little bit of everything. Played soccer, played baseball, basketball, loved basketball. Never played football, was never allowed to play football. Again, parents, mom just worried that I was going to get hurt. And the funny thing is I was always the biggest kid in my age group. I was always the tallest, in my class. It wasn't really until I got to high school that people shot up. I was like, oh, there's people a lot bigger and stronger and taller than I am. But everything kind of evens out.
You definitely would have been a quarterback if you actually played. I could see you being. I mean, I've never seen you throwing a football, but
when I was on recruiting trips in high school for swimming, I would meet some of the other collegiate coaches, namely like football, because sometimes the swimmers would share the same like eating halls as the other sports, like basketball and football. And the football coaches would be like, "You're a swimmer?" And they'd be, no. You need to be playing football.
Dude, I could definitely picture you playing.
Dude, I remember we were like we were down in Florida for the wedding. We were throwing a pool like end to end, the football.
That was so much fun.
Hell yeah, we were just chucking over people's heads. We were like, what the fuck? Get a little wild with the throws, but it was fun.
So of the sports in your youth, swimming was obviously
swimming stuck. It was the only sport that I actually wanted to get up and do every day without being told.
How old were you when you
8?
Wow, you captured that desire at 8.
That next summer I swam for our summer league team, the Twiniverse Torpedoes. And that year I was like, I want to do this like all the time. And swimming's a sport that you can do all year round. It's not seasonal.
Right.
They have like seasons in terms of what meets like you go to. There's like a long course season and a short course season, but it's all year round. It's like Jiu Jitsu and martial arts. It's something that you can do. And that's also another thing. I didn't like the break. Like if I'm going to do something, I want to just keep doing it. I don't want to stop for 3 months, do something else, and then continue with something else.
Right.
I was gonna ask, like, what about that, like you gravitated towards? Was it the fact like I could see myself if I got good at it, like, because
I did.
Who doesn't
I got
like
good fast? Honestly,
I was just gonna say
it was natural.
It was a combination being like, yo, who doesn't love being in a pool? And then all of a sudden you're like, yo, I can outswim these people, and it was like turned into, oh, okay, I could do this, and I'm pretty fucking good at it. And
I got really good. I won my first race, and I didn't lose for like probably a few years. Every time I swam, I like bettered my time, probably up until I was about 15 or 16, and then plateaued a little bit. And then had another spike.
It's probably everybody caught up a little bit too.
They do, like physically, people catch up a little bit.
I wouldn't call it as much probably plateau as like people catching up.
All swimmers go through that at some point.
Which events were your favorite?
So when I was younger, I was a distance swimmer. I had a long, lean body, so it was really conducive for distance. And then when I sort of got into high school, like my sophomore year, I definitely filled out a lot more. And got a lot more muscular. So distance wasn't really like the best thing for my body type. So I started swimming more like middle distance and sprint. I wasn't like a 50 kind of sprinter, but like 200, 100, 200, 400. Those are my events. Mostly a freestyler, but I also really excelled in butterfly and backstroke. I was a horrible breaststroker. When I was younger, I had Osgood-Schlatter's disease. So it's like a growing disorder in your knees where your bones don't grow at the same rate as like your tendons and ligaments. Like it actually, your knee joint like kind of slips out of place
because it's not like taut enough.
Yeah. It's during a growth spurt. So it's when like kids 11, 12 go through, excruciating. I couldn't run or jump for like 2 years. Actually, I found out I was at a track meet in middle school. I was running the 400 and like halfway through my knees started like they were on fire and I didn't know why. So then we went to the doctor and found out that like, oh, this is what it is. And then sure enough, it's hereditary.
That's
my
crazy.
Mom had it.
Is it rare?
Cousins have it. Not really, actually. I've spoken to a few students over the years and they're like, I've had that too.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. But it goes away. You just outgrow it basically once you get out of your growth spurt. But yeah, it's painful. Imagine a 12-year-old being told like you can't run or jump.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's all you do when you're that age. You know?
So swimming was good because it's non-weight bearing, so there was no stress on my knees, which was great. But breaststroke, it requires such an awkward out turn of the knee, and I could never do it.
Just hurt too much.
Yeah, it just hurt too much.
Well, still savage at the other 3 categories. So.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, set some records. I set a national high school record my senior year in the 100 backstroke. Won 2 state championships, and it was a good
just
time.
trying to refresh my memory. But I remember us talking. You almost got into the Olympics, right?
I did. I qualified twice in '96 when I was 16, and
That's
then again
incredible.
for the 2000 games for Sydney, Australia.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was one of the youngest competitors to qualify in Atlanta at the time.
How old were you?
16.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
For men.
Mhm.
Girls, it's pretty common to see 16, 15, 16-year-olds in the Olympics swimming. Men, peak a little bit later, early to mid 20s.
Yeah.
You see guys really, really start to excel. It's rare you see a top level 17-year-old, smashing world records. Michael Phelps is really the only one. He was already by himself.
He was built like a man already. Because you think about it, you become like in your late 20s.
And an Aquaman.
Well, we saw him
because he's got like the crazy hands and feet.
We knew his parents, like they would always sit in the stands. He had an older sister that swam also. She wasn't obviously nearly as good as he is. But yeah, I mean, you knew at when Michael was probably 7, 8 in the age group, because he's I think like a good 6 years younger than I am. So when I was in the older age groups, like he was in the younger, so we never compete against each other until much later. Unfortunately, I never got to compete against him. But
when did he compete? Was that 2004?
No, I think he qualified for his first games for Sydney in 2000.
In 2000?
Yeah,
is that long ago? That's
2000,
crazy.
2004 in Athens, 2008 Beijing. Yeah, he's been to quite a few.
No, I know he's been around, and obviously the whole weed scandal. Yeah.
It's so stupid because
like it's not enhanced performance. Yeah, exactly.
I know.
It's
but
crazy.
He's also as the position that he has, there's a certain image that you have to portray.
Well, I guess that was their main
of course,
thing.
this sort of quote unquote wholesome image, and then because he may
but what superstar period is clean,
Well, at the same time, if you were to interview, a lot of professional athletes, I'd probably guarantee a good portion of them, do use, in some form as recovery, as pain management, whatever it may be.
Yeah. What do you have written up here?
What?
Oh, fix your mic a little bit.
Oh yeah,
just do it. Yeah, like
he's in conversation. I didn't want to reach across his face, I know he
kept looking over and threw me off.
Something?
You fucked up my flow.
Sorry.
Our wide angle shot went vertical too, which is weird. So I'm just not going to use it for the rest of the stream because it's
wacky.
It's showing weird. Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
No, yeah, but let's move on.
So you swam until what age?
To about 20.
20?
Yep. Right after the Sydney Games, I basically just wasn't in it anymore. Wow. I had moved out to live with my grandmother's younger brother, David, in Texas. And I was kind of going back and forth between UT Austin and another swim club, Alamo Swim Club in San Antonio. And he lived in Kerrville, and San Antonio was about maybe 50 miles from his house, and Austin was like 90 miles. So I would swim. I would travel like 3-4 days a week, doing that, and then doing my additional own training at his pool. And it's like he lived in like a golf complex, so I would swim there, do my own workouts, and then go and compete with the team.
Just swim.
And then after trials, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
It's just you lost the passion.
Yeah. And it wasn't so much that I didn't make it. It was just, and I probably could have tried again. I was young. I probably could have put in time for 2 more Olympic trials, but 8 more years of waking up at 5 a.m, swimming 2.5 hours, going to school, and then swimming another 3 hours at night. Swimming like 10, 12 miles a day that's a lot of work. I mean, it's a job in and itself.
So
it sounds like it kind of went stale, and then can you say that's around the same time you started finding like martial arts?
It is. I stopped swimming. I started martial arts before I had quit swimming. I had stopped for a period of time when I had gone to college. I had sort of had like maybe a mental breakdown when I left high school. So when I graduated high school, 2 days later, I flew out to California to swim with my old coach, Ray Luz. He's now currently the head coach of Indiana University. He's produced I don't even know how many Olympians. Lily King's one of his swimmers. She's, world record holder in breaststroke. He's probably one of the best coaches in the country. There's a handful of them, and he's one of them. So I went out to California at University of Pacific in Stockton, California. Believe it or not, I spent some time in Stockton. 209. So 2 days after I graduated high school, I went to swim with him to sort of like prepare for nationals and really get a head start. Go to collegiate swimming, and I went right from there to college. So I never had a time to like decompress, spend some time with my mom. Spend some time with my friends, say goodbye to my friends. And when I got to school, it was just like a total culture shock. North Carolina is a different vibe. It's just, it was a really hard thing to deal with, and got really depressed. And it was a dark period, and came home, was going to go back to school. I stayed about a semester and a half and came home. I was going to go back the following year. My mom and I had packed up the car. We were about to drive to school, and I just broke down and cried. And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to swim anymore. Like, I don't know what to do. So she had brought me to a therapist, and lo and behold, through many therapy sessions, he's like, well, if you're not going to swim, you need to do something. He's like, you've been an athlete, for a long period of your life. And it's been a great outlet for you in some way. And for you to just not do anything, it's not going to be healthy physically and especially mentally at the place you're in. I heard martial arts is good. So sure enough, found a karate school and fell in love with it.
That's all she wrote.
Yeah, that's all she wrote.
That's awesome.
So karate was the first.
That was, it was Kyokushin karate. So a blend of like Kyokushin karate.
Man, he's an athlete because he basically got to the top levels of each thing that he did. And you've been doing martial, and you started late. A lot of really good practitioners in any martial art, they've been doing it since they were a kid. You started in your 20s.
I did.
Early 20s, but still.
Yeah.
Like,
I took my first class
impressive.
in I had just turned 18. It was like January of 98 or something like that. I had taken my first class and loved it. But I was still swimming and doing that. My conditioning was amazing because I was swimming heavily and doing karate. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, you're probably top-notch shape.
I never got tired.
Yeah. I mean, well, you're never doing jiu-jitsu either.
I do. I just hide it well.
Yeah. You just nullify everybody else. I get it, but still do a good job of it. But,
so karate was like approached when you're like 18, 19, but you didn't really dive into it until like 2021. And then where was it, in New Jersey?
Yeah, New Jersey.
So you came back to New Jersey.
Yeah. I started in East Brunswick, trained at a school in Staten Island for a while, and taught. That's where I kind of started my like teaching career, if you will.
in Staten Island?
Yeah, in Staten Island, New Dorp, and then had a little hiatus from the school for a little while, and then started teaching in Bensonhurst, and then I helped open a school in Bay Ridge before I finally left the organization.
Did you accomplish black belt?
I did. Yeah, I was second degree black belt.
Nice.
Yeah.
How many years was that?
I got my black belt fairly quickly. I think I got my black belt in maybe 3.5 years.
Wow.
And then my second degree, like 3 years after that.
What's it normally take for people? Like 5 years?
Yeah, around 5 years, maybe in karate. Some schools maybe a little faster. I know, like I don't know, other arts, it's a lot faster.
Are the
Not
degrees
to disparage any other, Jiu Jitsu is the hardest black belt and the longest.
I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah,
for sure. But I was gonna say, like, the stripes,
Sure.
is it set up like jiu-jitsu? Like, do you have to wait a couple of years to get your next stripe?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's
I never
almost
knew
like that
that.
same kind of pattern.
Yeah, a little different, but similar.
Very-
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I never knew that, but when you said it, I'm like, I wonder. That was a question that just obviously.
How many different type of karates are there?
Oh,
Yeah,
Dude.
there's a lot. Dude.
So you could be
probably hundreds.
So you could be a black belt in just one specific karate.
You can make your own karate, and then you're a black
right,
belt.
because didn't Bruce Lee
You
made
could
his own
3D print.
Nah, Bruce
You
did
could-
karate.
it's kung fu. You could 3D print it.
Well, I think the core modern forms of karate, and I don't know all of them. I know like Goju-Ryu,
I
Shotokan,
heard of those.
Ishinryu.
These sound like cool rap albums.
Dang. How
what
dare
else?
you?
Kyokushin.
The Killer Bees.
There's a couple others that all came from one guy. The founder of modern karate, I believe his name is Gichin Funakoshi, and all of his students then started every major modern karate that you know.
Oh, that's cool. So there's like an umbrella that you can follow.
Exactly. So if I started like this jiu-jitsu style, and then you develop your own, and you develop your own, just all offshoots of my teachings, basically. You just created your own thing. So a lot of the modern karate, like katas, they're very similar. So if you see them do their forms, they're almost exactly the same. That's
cool, because that kind of like follows a similar pattern of like any study or philosophy, right? Of master student.
Absolutely.
It's like leaving your own little fingerprint.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing, right? Like a human kind of wants to leave their own fingerprint on something, even if it's like a legacy that you're in. You want to leave even a little bit of a
even slightly different
fingerprint. I think is a perfect.
Well, that's what I think a good instructor should aim to do. I guess there's a lot of coaches or people that lead situations that do it for their own ego and self-gratification, where they always want the student to be reliant on them, for information and for guidance, where, I want my students to be able to come to me when they need, but my job is to help you like guide your own jujitsu. I'm providing like a general template, of movements and concepts, but ultimately you have to choose what works best for you, what you like and what you don't like, and then formulate your own thing. Like I can't do that. I can't do that for anybody.
Yeah.
All I can do is just kind of show you like, here are all the words. And then you figure out what sentences you want to make out of those,
Wouldn't you agree that's why jiu-jitsu above every other martial art is like, it's like you're in it for the long haul. It's so long and grueling because of the fact that
because of what you have to create.
You have to create your own jiu-jitsu. That's essentially what you're saying, So it's like that makes sense why it takes so long, because it's like people are trying to figure out. It's not like in Muay Thai or kickboxing or karate. There's only so many techniques.
Well, there's also the character part of the jiu-jitsu, where there are people that come in that don't even really kind of know themselves and need some sort of life guidance. So, to develop an art form where you're learning how to express yourself, where you can't even do that just in your regular life is difficult. So jiu-jitsu is a great means for that kind of expression, where people don't have to worry about what people think about them or anything. Sometimes I guess people get caught up in, the getting caught or what they look like, compared to somebody else.
That's ego.
Yeah.
That's just pride and ego.
Sure.
Yeah.
It must be rare to have a student come in and not transform, if not even at all possible. Like they have to come in.
They always do.
They always do.
They usually leave.
I was going to say, or they disappear before you detect the
change. It either happens or they leave.
Yeah.
The people that stay,
and it happens
like
over time. And I tell people that, and I mostly tell parents that to kids that sign up. Although it's certainly a pertinent conversation for adults, but I always tell the parents, like, keep in mind your child is going to grow and improve and learn at like their own rate. Don't compare them to any other person. It's not your kid against them, or don't look at even their sibling and say, well, they're understanding and they're getting it. How come they're not? They're their own separate entity.
Well, it's like how many times do you see like even belt levels for adults, even, right?
Sure.
It's like some guys catch on quick and they get like high ranks quick, and all of a sudden someone just out of nowhere in the next 2 years catches up to you, and you're like, oh,
how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it just takes longer to click.
It takes longer. It could be natural ability. There's so many different factors that
mental
play a part
blocks,
in
like,
your improvement in anything and learning anything.
Exactly. That's why jiu-jitsu, I think, to me is so special. Is like it's the most, for a martial art, it's like the closest thing to everything else in reality, as opposed to any other martial art.
I think you also have to be somewhat of I don't know what I'm probably going to butcher the word, a kinesthetic learner, right? How there's different kinds of like learning and aptitude. For jiu-jitsu, I think you have to have that sort of innate thing to get it quick. Like if you don't have it, I think it's just going to take you a little bit longer. So if you're more of like just the analytical kind of person, you sort of get the sequences in your brain, but then your body doesn't follow.
Right.
Or if you don't have the analytical side, it's like, oh, my body can do it, but I can't process the movements in time, you know, in my head. So it's there's always a balance.
Yeah, and kinesthetic learning is what it's like. The physicality of it is
it's
what
the muscle memory
connects
part
you.
of it.
Yeah, is what makes the connection.
And it's
in
body
your head.
awareness. Some people just have
Yeah,
no
yeah.
clue of where
Yeah.
their body is in relation to just space.
Well, think about it. It's obviously gonna be easier for people that are
Athletically, like
well, not
inclined.
athletically, but oh my god, what's the word? You're not like a klutz, but you're it's the word I'm looking for.
You can do it.
Now I'm not.
Spazzed.
Now I'm not gonna be able to do it. I was just gonna say
Coordinated?
coordinated. Thank you. That's the word.
You did it.
Well, I think that's why I
trying
got
to bleed it out of him.
You
Jiu Jitsu
did
and
it.
martial arts too, and got the coordination of it was because of swimming too.
Mhm.
Swimming is a 100% coordination movement and activity in sport.
Mhm.
So that's what I was going to ask you.
That makes sense.
You have to coordinate your breathing with stroke,
Right.
with pulling of the water, the resistance of the water.
It's like fundamentals of it.
Yeah.
That, and it's the same thing with jujitsu. It's
Sure.
like the fundamentals is what branches you off to your game essentially.
And with water, you can feel exactly right, like where it's resisting
Where it
you and
is,
stuff
right.
too. So it
Yeah.
kind of gives
You
you
have
a
to have a
different.
certain like perfect technique for it.
Be like water, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be like a fish.
yeah. Yeah. So we branched off into philosophy a little bit, which is awesome. But just to get us back on timeline, was it? And I was curious, was
Sure.
it just on the suggestion of the therapist to get involved in another activity like martial arts, or
Mhm.
was there something about the karate itself that attracted you to it? Or what brought you to that place and
Good
had you walk
question.
through the
Ooh,
door?
good question. The challenge of it. Honestly, the thought of doing something else or having something else that I enjoyed as much as swimming, I didn't think that I would find anything else. Like that was the depressing thing for me too, is that I stopped this, like that was my identity.
That was your
Yeah.
meaning to
You know,
life.
that was me.
Mhm.
It's like Radji the swimmer. You know, I go through school, I go through high school. It's like, oh, you're the swimmer. You're the
Mhm.
swimmer guy.
Yeah.
So that to stop that, it was hard to figure out like what I liked, like who I really was, you know, as a person. You don't really have that kind of like self-expression in the pool. It's just you swimming against the clock.
Right.
You know, it's as
Yeah.
simple as it is.
It's true.
Yeah. But no, I think it was
Was a
I think it
combination.
was
You
the
said-
challenge of it. It was, it was the environment. I liked the community of it. I liked the discipline of it. I'm used to like following the direction of a coach,
Mhm.
in that way. It's like, I'm the athlete, you're directing, you tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like there's no, well, I think we should probably do this, or I don't really feel like, no, it's just you walk in and this is what we're doing today. And there's no questions about it. So I kind of liked that relationship. I really had fostered really great relationships with coaches. And I've also on the other end had really horrible relationships with coaches,
Mhm.
very abusive, very mentally abusive. Coaches would maybe take advantage of my passion, but also sometimes my youth, at the time, where I really couldn't stick up for myself or stand up for myself in certain ways,
Scumbags, man.
Yeah,
Advantage
yeah.
of a kid.
But I all, it's all
went
learning
wiser to the none,
experience.
yeah.
It's all learning experience.
Of course.
Yeah.
Even the coach that I had, not anything disparaging against Ray. He's a fantastic coach, but there were times where Ray and I, didn't get along. He was not a nice person to me.
Mhm.
That's a hard thing to deal with at like boarding school and being away from family and
Yeah.
having somebody control you in that way, and decide. I don't know what happens with the thing that you love the most.
It's a double-edged
Like people can tarnish the things that you love.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a rough
Yeah.
thing to have to deal with.
Yeah, it could ruin a passion.
Because
for you, you know what I mean?
sometimes you have no control over it. You wish that you would.
Mhm.
You hope that you do, but it's really unfortunate when someone has a position of influence and power and tarnishes what you really love to do, and you don't want to do it anymore just because of one person.
Yeah. And really young people are the ones who are the most vulnerable
Most
to that,
impressionable.
right? Because if you're an
Absolutely.
adult, you might be able to be like, well, no, fuck you.
You
I
can't
still
speak
have
to
this
me
love.
like that,
I still have
right?
this love. You stand up for yourself. But as as a young person, a child or a young adult or whatever, like, yeah, you're super vulnerable to that because you're looking for guidance of the professionals, the experts, the organizers, whatever it is, right? And then
I also think
they're shitty to you. You don't feel like you're in a position to stand up for yourself.
Well,
and that sucks. And then it breaks you and breaks your interest in that. So yeah.
Well, all of
shitty.
I think all of my experiences have molded me into, the teacher and instructor that I've become, because I've used every experience that I've had with martial arts coaches and swimming coaches and other, sports coaches, mostly swimming, to decide how I wanted to treat a student and athlete, how I wanted to conduct my business, the things that I wanted to do and didn't want to do. I took all of that to heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the way to turn it into a positive. It's like, don't look at it negatively. It's an experience. It's just a learning experience.
Absolutely.
He didn't
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Define him.
I wouldn't.
he didn't let that a person like that define you. But it's also a double-edged sword, because you got to go through that pain.
Sure.
And it sucks, and you don't wish that on your worst enemies at times, but that experience is what helps build us. I mean, I can think of in my life, in my career, even, having to deal with that abusive nature from another human being, and you're kind of in a position where you can't really fight it.
No,
because that person, like you said before, they're controlling your dream and what you feel is your destiny.
Sure.
So you eat it.
Yeah.
And then understanding how to balance yourself so you could deal with those things, I think, is what builds somebody. And with what you've created at the school, honestly, the ability to now reflect with each other. I mean, your desire and everything that you put together from all of your experiences created the school.
Sure.
And the environment that's in now that legit led us to do this, because as partners and as the bonds that we've formed with each other, we sit there and we actually take the time to care about each other. And when we are having difficulties, when we are having plateaus, when we're having those breaks in our growth,
sure,
we're there for each other. And I think that's literally a direct correlation of what you dealt with, where you were like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. Yeah. These are the pieces of my life that made me strong and who I am today. And you now, like you were saying before, giving us the words to recite.
Sure.
And it's now our turn to turn it into, our thing.
Your own thing.
Right.
The community is something that definitely translated from swimming to martial arts and my own jiu-jitsu school. There's a really close, the swimming community is very close. Not just like as a whole. It is small, where you kind of know people through, 3 degrees of separation kind of thing. But every team in itself is very close. The families are close. There's a lot of like carpooling. Parents will bring other kids to practice. Other kids' parents' names, their siblings' names. You generally even know like what their parents do for a living.
I mean,
it's very close. It's a very close community like that. And, I wanted to create a place like that. I wanted to create a place where people just didn't walk in like a gym where they throw a punch key into a scanner and then they leave. They don't talk to anybody. There's no kind of social connection with people. I think it's just it provides a better thriving place when you have social connections with people.
Yeah,
of course. It pushes everybody further.
So it creates more camaraderie. I mean, there was never a time when I swam and the whole team wasn't cheering, and there wasn't a time where I swam like absolute shit and the team was still 100% behind me. There was never. I never felt alone. You're in the pool alone, but you always have the team behind you. And the same thing in jiu-jitsu. You go out there by yourself, but you have your whole club, your whole team and students and everybody rooting for you.
The parallel of the time invested. I mean, when you think about what you're doing with swimming and how jiu-jitsu is and how much time you take from your life and even sacrifice.
Sure.
Because there's things in your life that you're sacrificing from doing.
You have to sacrifice. If you want to accomplish anything, you have to make sacrifice and be dedicated. Everybody should be dedicated to something. You can't just go through life not wanting to do anything.
Purpose.
There's some purpose.
Gotta have purpose, yeah. Someone mentioned before about I think it was Ray mentioned he did Taekwondo. And
I'll bring it back up.
his instructor
my wife wrote a nice thing.
was forced to do tournaments, it looks like, and he lost the love. So I know we're going into a little philosophy question here, but I want to ask.
Well, I would ask what prompted the forcing to do a tournament. Why did he force him to do it? How old was he? There may be a lot of factors involved. It's also, you could be forced to do a tournament when you don't want to and still come out in the end of a good experience. I think it all comes down to also how the instructor might have handled it after the fact. Like, did he talk to you? Did he explain, like, this is normal? Don't feel bad. This happens all the time to people. It's just a step in your towards progress in some way. It doesn't feel like that, but some kind of words of encouragement. I've seen it a couple times. Honestly, it's rare, where I've seen a kid, an adult, maybe one kid in my entire history of teaching, and I think one adult that just had a bad experience and stopped. But it's for me personally, it's rare.
Yeah.
I interrupted that, but I like what Susanna wrote. That's nice. Jiu-jitsu may not be your whole life, but it makes your life whole.
Sure.
It does feel like that. Like whenever I come home, like, did you get that mental feeling from swimming too? That mental release that you get in jiu-jitsu?
Not in the same way, not consciously.
Mm-hmm.
People used to ask me when I swam distance, so like, the 1,000, it's like a 9-minute race. 1,500, 1,650 is like, say on average a 15-minute race. It's like, well, what do you think about? What do you think about when you're swimming 12 miles a day? I'm like, honestly, nothing. I just listen to the water splashing into my ears. It's calming.
Just literally,
that's what helped me get through. It's just
sounds like
listening to
meditation almost.
Sometimes as I got a little higher in my training, like when I got older, the facilities were a little better. Like they would be at Princeton, D'Annunzio Pool, like they had speakers
in the water
and stuff. So
those
you
are
could
cool.
play music and stuff. Yeah,
Those are cool.
Yeah.
And it always sounds different underwater.
I don't think I've ever heard music underwater. Like that.
No, they have
It's pretty
really
clear.
good speakers.
It's
clear.
If it's a
Really?
good speaker, they can do it just fine.
Why waste your time?
I mean,
I don't know why that song popped up in my head.
keep it to yourself.
My radio.
My radio.
Sorry.
Yeah, you should be.
He's been waiting to sing that ad lib for like the last 20 minutes.
It's been in his head. Every question he's been asking, he's like, "How can I slip this in?"
Your radio?
Yeah, my
he called it
radio, bro. You
should give me another beer for that.
I'll get you a beer in a second.
Comment.
So before we keep going, anybody out there who has any questions, please drop a comment so we can ask Radji. One question I have about swimming.
Sure.
So as you know, of course, it sounds like you've done way more than 10,000 hours of swimming.
Oh, way more.
So what do you think you've mastered more, swimming or jiu-jitsu in your lifetime?
Good question, Eli.
Swimming.
Thinking. Ooh.
Swimming. Wow. That's scary.
No,
Considering
but
how
that
good he is at
also
Swimming, because there was nothing. I mean, now my body's much. I haven't been in a pool in over 15 years,
right?
At least.
But at the peak.
But at that,
right?
there was nothing I couldn't do in a pool.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do everything on the mat in jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not proficient at every single guard. I'm not a wizard at every single. I'm good in a lot of different areas. But yeah, it's impossible to master all of jiu-jitsu.
Right.
It's just like staring.
You can be really
this.
good in your own selective pathways, right? But it's selective pathways. It's a very narrow skill set that you have because it's your own skill set. It's impossible.
Also, because
everything else that everybody else
because
does.
it takes so long just to master that little bit that you do.
Of course,
it's like there's just too much. That's like jiu-jitsu is like
just
staring into abyss.
It's just too much.
So much shit in jiu-jitsu, man.
Is half guard, would you say, like at the top of your jiu-jitsu? Or is it it's
definitely my I guess favored position, if you will. My instructor coming up, he taught it heavily.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of forced to learn that. We didn't really learn a whole lot of other sort of like movements and positions in that sense. I mean, yeah, we worked other transitions, of course. I learned how to take the back and learn, but as like a system, you know, every instructor sort of has their preferred way, and some instructors only teach that. And it could be very effective, and their students end up being very proficient and technical and good. But it's a very narrow game because it's basically modeled and blueprinted from their own instructor, which is totally fine. For me, what I like to do is that I not only teach what I know and what I love and what I'm really proficient at and what I gravitate towards, but also all of jiu-jitsu, because everybody works differently. Everyone's brain works differently, different body types. You know, they may not prefer half guard. Maybe they're a smaller person and they just don't want to get smashed, you know, underneath. So maybe they're going to work more of like an open guard style, or, work to enter the legs differently, or something like that. So I can never force people to be me or copy my style. If what I do works for you and you can copy exactly what I do, then great. You know, if you need to change what I do, if you make a different grip and it works better for you that way, then that's awesome too. You know, let me know so I can can practice it. Yeah.
So you mentioned, and I'll get you a beer after asking this question.
About time.
You mentioned in swimming that you were quiet in your head. You were just listening to water. In jiu-jitsu, are you even when you're just training and
when you whip her ass, do you even think about it?
When we're twaining, what do you hear when you're twaining?
I
do. The Island Boys want to know.
Are you thinking about business or twaining?
No, but seriously, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So are you thinking about like your student and how you can make them better? Are you also quiet in your head? Are you just listening to music sometimes?
Well, that's a great question. There's a lot going on in my head when I'm rolling, because as an instructor, especially in big class sizes, I also, while I'm training, I also have to be conscious of everybody else on the mat. So there's like a real intent focus that I need to have in my own jiu-jitsu, keeping myself safe. That's primary, because if I'm not healthy, then I can't help my students. And it's also monitoring what's going on with my partner, but also monitoring what's going on like across the mat. Whether it be looking while I'm training off the corner of my eye, listening for something. I'll always hear someone like yell fast, so then I immediately will react to it. I'm really sort of in tune with the space of the room, pretty well.
You didn't hear him? He's a Jedi master.
Thank you. I hope one of the mics picked that up so that it comes into the audio file. Yeah, that'd be funny.
So I got let's go, because I want to keep asking these jiu-jitsu philosophy questions, but let's go back to your story. So after you started doing karate, you got your black belt, you were teaching, you helped open up a school. Tell us about, I guess, how karate ended and how your purpose in life shifted.
How many years have you been doing jiu-jitsu and all that?
Sure. So the karate thing kind of ended. So I worked for an organization for a number of years, like 12 years, probably about. And I had enough. I felt that I was not appreciated, wasn't compensated fairly. I was like basically the head instructor of the school, and just felt like I, deserved more than what I was getting. I was getting older. I started thinking more about like my future in life, and I'm like, well, this is okay now because I don't have any kids, and I have an apartment in Harlem, and I have no real expenses, and but eventually this is not going to be cool. I really need to make a living, and I need some stability, and I guess they weren't really ready to offer that. So so I stopped. I left. Just quit.
And when you stopped karate, did you immediately look for something else? Was it like
no? I was going to actually go to school. I was going to go. I was going to train jiu-jitsu sort of as a hobby and go back to school for physical therapy.
Oh wow.
You started doing jiu-jitsu when you were doing like your MMA fights and stuff like that.
I was,
right?
yeah. I started jiu-jitsu because of that. Yeah, I got
Mhm.
taken down in 2 fights by wrestlers back to back and had like no clue what to do.
You're like, I wanna
My
choke
coach
these
told me
motherfuckers out.
afterwards, he said once in one fight, I was like up against the cage next to him, and he's I guess he was telling me how to defend the double leg or something. And he said I looked over at him and looked and said, I can't. Like just flat out. I was like, I can't. In the middle of the fight. Now I couldn't even imagine having that notion of like not knowing even how to do something
Right.
in a fight. I don't know, it's just
So
bizarre.
Did you walk into MMA with just karate as
Only striking.
only striking?
Only striking. I had a bunch of boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai fights under my belt. Handfuls, probably maybe close to 20 fights.
And those were all from, doing karate, and you were like, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't because you went and trained Muay Thai.
No. Because our team, it was a very competitive team, produced a lot of professional fighters, guys in Bellator. Lyman Good was one of my main training partners. He was the inaugural welterweight Bellator champion. Uriah Hall, current UFC fighter, was one of my main training partners.
Yeah.
Carlos Brooks, boxing champion, was one of my main training partners. Also fought in Bellator. Glory, he fought with us in the WCL. Uriah fought in the WCL. So I came up with some really, really good, talented fighters.
Monsters.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. So the MMA fights, what was that experience like? Like,
amazing when you win.
yeah,
There's no feeling like it.
you got KO'd?
I've only been knocked out once. I actually got knocked out in my last MMA fight. I got knocked out cold. It's actually the only time I've ever been knocked out.
You just woke up and did
I
you
had
realize right away?
no recollection of it.
Same thing they all have. What happened?
No recollection. I remember getting hit, and I remember walking out of the cage. I don't remember anything.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, that makes sense.
I actually remember the punch. It was a delayed knockout. It was kind of like the Edson Barboza and actually another former training partner of mine, excellent fighter Shane Burgos. Same thing with him. So it was like the delayed, delayed reaction to the hit. It's just
Did it take
there's nothing you can do about it. It's like
it's a flash,
And the guy didn't even look at the punch. It took me a while to watch the fight afterwards, like a couple months, but I watched it and he was looking down.
He was looking down. Yeah, he threw a haymaker. Yeah.
Is it?
That's just a lucky shot.
It's all right.
I mean, it happens.
Is it common?
Did it take you hours later?
I saw him actually. I saw him sometime after the fight, and he even said to me, he was like, "That was a lucky punch, man." He goes, "I was like, it was going to be a hard fight for me that night." He knew it. He knew it was not going to be a good night. He just threw a
Hail Mary and
it
caught. That's all.
And it was funny too because that I had been training jiu-jitsu for a little time, and in my head in the fight, I was like, I want to take him down. Like I want to showcase my grappling a little bit. But I got into grappling just because I knew that that part of my skill set lacked and wanted to devote time to it. I started training with this guy, Davidas Torsavicius, Lithuanian guy. He was a black belt under
name.
Yeah, he fought some really well-known people. I think he fought Demetrius Johnson in the WEC.
No shit. So a small guy.
He fought in the WEC like way back.
Like
and
mid to late.
Davidas was like he was a dude to be reckoned with. He was a top-notch guy. He was, I think, maybe a champion in a couple organizations, at the time. But he was a black belt, and he was teaching out of a it was a Taekwondo school in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn. So when I was working in physical therapy in Brooklyn, one of the patients there, I forget his name, but his older brother owned a Taekwondo school. And we were talking. I was like, yo, I want to train jiu-jitsu. And he was like, yo, my brother has this guy come in. Why don't you come in and take some classes? And this was like 2004, I think, is when I like officially started training in the gi. And Davidas was awesome, like super supportive. Awesome. Technical, tough, like what I liked about fighting and jiu-jitsu. I ended up moving out of Brooklyn, stopped training for a while, so we kind of lost touch a little. I got my blue belt and started training in East Brunswick, like 2 miles from my house. I found Brunswick BJJ. That's where my beginnings were. The owner Haas, he was a brown belt at the time.
What year was that?
I got there in 2009. I started there in like, I want to say August, September of 2009.
So you've been doing jiu-jitsu collectively for how many years?
Let's see, we're in
22.
2022.
We've already established
I know.
we really don't do math well here.
So,
Well, no, because I'm actually forgetting the first part.
so
How many-
jiu-jitsu, what is that, 18 years now?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wild.
Well, yeah. Some experience under your belt.
Is
Yeah,
it
sure.
is it common that
Schloki.
people who
Proud.
fight
for sure.
in MMA early on, like early 2000s and whatnot, that they would fight with like, I guess I would say limited knowledge because you were a black belt in karate, so your
Oh no, it was
striking
way
was
limited
high
knowledge.
level.
No.
But it
People
was-
were still
Because they weren't
people were
well-rounded.
still they were still specialists really in one area
Mhm.
and not like all-around fighters.
Like now
Now
people
every fighters
usually
train everything.
I would say
something
2000,
something
they start
really
doing
good and then
everything.
everything.
Would you
Yeah.
agree 2010 on people really have excelled
elevated their
like
game?
in MMA, like
Absolutely.
doing everything?
It wasn't that you just
you
had
still
like a
had
mean
like
chin.
stylistic matchups, the striker
Yeah.
versus grappler.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that doesn't really. I mean, it's
It
still.
happens,
but it's
somewhat.
shoot fighter and like what was that, Ken Shamrock and
Yeah, he was a shoot fighter.
was
I
a
think.
shoot fighter.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck is a shoot fighter?
A shoe fighter?
Remember,
Yeah.
there's a one.
Fight
Throw
with the
shoes?
There's a.
Those chancletas?
Dude, wasn't
Who
UFC?
throws a shoe?
Honestly, man, who throws a shoe? Wasn't it UFC 1 where the guy had the one boxing glove?
Yeah, Art.
style is that?
What the hell is his
I don't
name?
even
Art
know.
Jimerson.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is he, an anime character? Like one.
Well, dude, if you ever watch UFC 1, it does feel like a fucking animation.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Well, my first
Royal Rumble.
MMA fight, it wasn't even sanctioned. Like I didn't have to take a blood test for it or anything. Yeah.
all the drugs. Pretty much all the enhancing drugs.
Yeah. The
Not saying, obviously, Raj participated in that.
so you
Yeah, Eddie slamming down those Modelo's making me thirsty. These pretzels are making me thirsty.
Yeah. You got to really sell it, Jerry. These pretzels are making me thirsty.
You know, I got a part of the Woody Allen movie. I told you that, right?
That's hilarious.
Fucking Seinfeld.
So
Yeah, it's great that it's
So
on
drink,
Netflix
Brian.
so then
Cheers, mate.
now. The drink.
so jiu-jitsu you started training in gi 2004.
Yeah.
Did you do any no-gi in the beginning or
I did. Yeah, it was all Nogi based. But once I started training, I don't want to say once I started training in the gi. Once I started training with Davidus, I realized, okay, there's more to this. You know, I was learning a very elementary version of what grappling is. It was a watered down version, not to diss, you know, who I learned it from or anything like that. I'm entirely grateful for all of the knowledge that I've gained from everybody I've trained with. But it's not the same. It wasn't the same details. Immediately, even as a white belt, but being a fighter for a while, I realized like, oh, this is how you're supposed to pass guard. Like this is how you're supposed to break someone down, you know, from top position.
and you did it specifically because in your MMA fights you were being taken down, so you
Yes.
needed to have that grappling under you. And when you probably looked at wrestling and jiu-jitsu and you were like, jiu-jitsu seems a little bit more intensive.
Yes. Well, I like I didn't like the explosivity of wrestling.
Mm.
Um,
Like too
I liked it.
focused.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't want to have to be fast and strong all the time.
Yeah, because you can't always be faster and stronger than
Yeah.
your opponent.
Yeah.
Being smarter than your opponent or understanding, like you said before,
And not to say wrestling's not technical, because it's extremely technical.
right.
But it's a different pace, and it's a different thing. It's a whole other animal, a whole other grappling animal. It's a very close cousin of jiu-jitsu, but it's different.
It's related, but
related.
it's different.
So other
Same,
than,
but different.
So other than
Same.
But different.
so probably the most influential things to your jiu-jitsu so far, from everything I've gathered, was your training in karate, your swimming,
Mhm.
and your background and genetically what's part of you in
Sure.
art. Is there anything else that you would say that maybe you would add to that recipe that's created who you are?
That's created me.
Yeah.
No, good upbringing. I had a very free childhood. I got to do what I wanted to do. I didn't have, in some respects, there's a lot of improvements that I've had to make as an adult with like responsibility. Even simple things like that, responsibility, being accountable for things. Whereas an only child, like, you don't have to do that. And as having like a total freedom, I didn't have like a curfew in that sense. I didn't have somebody, my mom didn't, check my homework every night, so there's a lot of areas in my life as an adult where I had to work on those things where, I was very like laissez-faire about just general things, in that sense, my lovely wife compliments me very well in that sense, where, you need to like go and move and do something, like she's that person to motivate. But also those times when you just need to like, chill out, like I'm that guy too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have, there's nothing that could change this about me, but I just have this always, since I can remember, this attitude towards life that just things will work out. Like I've never really had this mentality or thought that like, woe is me in this like doomsday world, I'll never be able to do it, or it's just like, it's fucked up, but
choose
like,
not to be the victim and just take hold of your own.
Things will work out because things have, and they do.
Take hold of your own destiny in a sense, as much as you can,
Yeah. Well, that's why I've always loved individual things, individual sports. It's just you. You win or lose, it's all on you. I don't have to blame you and be like, you didn't play defense, man. We fucking lost because of you. It's
what?
Like,
I know the work I put in.
Yeah,
exactly.
Jiu Jitsu is like that too. It's like you're surfing.
Yeah.
Like I think that the way you explain how to take on life is kind of like the parallels that you get out of jiu-jitsu, because you learn that, okay, you're not going to win every move. You're not going to be able to conquer every single aspect of the sport. But if you just spend a little bit of time and you start moving forward and you allow yourself to grow, then all of a sudden you reach the impossible happens.
Be dedicated. Don't give up.
Don't stop doing it. It teaches you humility, and it teaches that if you can get through that, then you can conquer anything at that point. Because
it's rough. I tell new students all the time, I'm like, listen, you're coming in and you think like you want to do this. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. This is probably going to be one of the most difficult things that you do in your life. The time it takes you to get a black belt. I was telling a new student this recently. The time it takes you to get a black belt, most people can get professional degrees. You become a doctor, you can become an attorney, engineer, whatever it is, in 10 years time, an architect, like real professional positions, in life, like really master of a craft in that time.
A master twainer.
A master twainer. And that's just him twaining.
And I say, if you're not the type of person that will stick through something, if you give up easily on things, then you might have trouble at some point. And it's not to say to steer you away and say, don't do this, is not for you, but know that you're going to hit that wall eventually. And hey, listen, if you do, like, I'm here to try to motivate you and do everything that I can to get you through it. And if we can't, then, we tried.
That's also like
sometimes it's just not for you. It's rare. I've had a few students, even one fairly recently. He's like, listen, Radji, you're amazing. I love your teaching. The school is great. The environment's awesome. But it's just, I just don't see myself really dedicating the amount of time it takes to get good. And it has nothing to do with you. It's just, it's not you, it's me.
I actually
and I was like, I appreciate that, man.
I commend that person for being honest with themselves.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes, you don't want to waste your time either.
No.
And it's like that. I think that's also another thing that's great about jiu-jitsu is like, if you can mentally tough it out to like commit to that, you can for anything. It makes you realize you can for anything.
You can do anything.
Yeah,
absolutely. You can persevere through the troubles on the mat. You hope, that's what you hope. right? That's what the goal of any martial art is. It's self-improvement, so that you take the lessons that you learn on the mat about yourself and your character, and then translate them outside of the school.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people that do that. Like, they're very good in one space, and then outside of that space, it's like everything leaves. You know, it's like, oh, this he's such a nice guy, and he's like so welcoming and friendly inside of the school, and then you find out it's like he's a total asshole outside of school. It's like, well, how does that happen? How are you not translating what's going on here? Like, where's the disconnect? I've seen that before.
Yeah, people compartmentalize all types of behaviors.
Those
like
people are more rare, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's why I say you can never lie, like, on the mat of who you are.
Yep.
You know, I joke with my wife, and I say, you know, if my daughter is like a boyfriend, he's got to come train jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, not as like a scare tactic, like a real thing. Like, come just take class, see what it's about, but just so I can see who you are, because you know if someone's abusive, you know if someone's vindictive, right? If they want to get even, because you see people who get tapped out and they immediately want to like get back at somebody.
Right.
They're like that. They're revengeful in their life.
Yeah.
Like, you can't hide any of that. You can tell if they're shy. You can tell if they're meek. You can tell if they're mentally weak.
You feel
right? They break under pressure. You feel all of that.
You
can
feel
see
it.
every part.
Well,
of
you know
somebody.
why? Because it puts you through like such a mental challenge. And it's funny because what you're saying,
people can hide their character through very good skill.
Exactly.
So the higher skill you go, sometimes you can hide that. And you know, I've known a few people,
but they usually get broken.
You still got to get to that point.
Yeah, they usually
You know?
get broken.
very skillful, but that hide their character very
people,
well.
But those people we're talking about are also rare, and you're always going to have those rare off chances of things happening.
for
you know
sure.
what I mean?
And they're products of their environments as well. You know,
People are always going to be products of their environment in that way.
It makes me think of that scene in Dark
From
Knight.
I thought you were going to do Bad Boys.
No, Dark Knight with the
What you
Joker.
gonna do?
He's like in people's last dying breaths, and they show you who they truly are.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit, that's fucked up.
Yeah, I flash forwarded.
Like
I flash forwarded to.
That's true. That's when you're most honest. You know, right before you're about to go.
I flash forward to Radji, like having his future like son-in-law, and he's got him in a bow and arrow, just stretching him out.
Who does number 2 work for?
Now I know who you really are.
Oh shit.
Wait until they see this podcast. No one's
That's awesome. Hey, so we're over an hour. We can obviously continue, but you guys want to pause and do some questions from the audience? Because we had a few. I saw that we come in.
Yeah,
I'm going to take a few from the live listeners tonight.
Do it.
Thank you, everyone, for interacting with us. It's awesome. We love it. Makes the show better. I'm going to scroll back up. I think Amanda had the first question.
How long did it take me to get my black belt?
She did ask that. We're going to pull that up.
I would say 11 years, roughly. I started training in 2004. I got my black belt December of 2015.
Did you have any time off?
A little bit, yeah. Like, I had time off, like, let's see. I had like 6 months off when I had my orbital surgery.
Yeah.
Had little time off here and there, but like, I think the longest time was when I had my second surgery for my orbital bone. In a MMA fight, I had my my left orbit fractured. So I had to have emergency surgery.
You could have lost the eye, right?
Not so much lost the eye, possibly vision, but it's rare to lose vision in like an orbital fracture.
And Eddie poked them.
Yeah, you fucking asshole. I was literally
everybody was
like,
poking me in my eyes after that.
Yeah, but I was
everybody.
No, you know what was fucked up about that? You fucking dick. Because I was about to call myself out on it, and you had to call me out first. But like, I was literally, dude. We were the last roll before you went into surgery, and I poked you in the fucking eye. I felt so good. Yeah, I was about to cry. I felt so bad.
The original plastic surgeon put the implant in wrong, and many years later, I for some reason unbeknownst to me developed an infection, and an abscess formed like inside my eye. So, and the doctor too was like, you were like working on borrowed time, because he's like, at any point, any squeeze that could have burst, and you would have gotten sepsis, and you would have died.
Jiu-jitsu.
And I was doing
So close to
jiu-jitsu
the
for
head, too.
years, and I was still like fighting a little bit, sparring like here and there. I had helped.
And didn't
I
you
helped Tom the Blast prepare for what the heck's his name? Ricky Fukuda. in the UFC, that big Japanese dude.
Mhm.
He was southpaw, and I wasn't a southpaw, but was like, I'll fight southpaw to help you.
And didn't you do a training? I think you talking to somebody the other day, a couple weeks back, and I was just standing there. Didn't you tell me that when you were doing your training for striking, that you were practicing like just taking it off the forehead? Like that was one of the drills.
Oh yeah, they used to tell that, like, if you're gonna block a jab, like you could use your forehead. It's like you're getting damage to your frontal lobe every time that happens. Like,
But take it.
Yeah,
Just
it doesn't hurt. You can do it. See,
It doesn't matter. You need to win for the team right now. We don't care about your future.
yeah,
That's one of the best lobes too.
yeah. That's
Raul asked, "How long did Radji train in judo?"
short time here and there, maybe a year of total judo training, probably. I went to Cranford Judo as like a young teenager. One of my mom's friends, one of her musician friends, her friend was like a judo student there, and I went with him, here and there. I signed up for like a few months. I would go here and there, but I don't know. It just didn't take.
Yeah.
You know your judo well.
You know your judo well.
Oh man, that would have been funny if we had that one ready.
For
some reason,
But I would like to get back into a little judo. I've been talking to Morrow about it.
You still,
it's
you still
fun
teach.
to
You have a good
just
plethora of takedowns, though, man. Like
Get in, but it'd be nice just
Yeah,
to maybe
I
have
agree.
the credentials, the rank behind it. Also, it's good just knowing it, but also as a business owner, it's nice to just also say like, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Some
and I have
accolades.
Judo
Some
is the
accolades.
shit.
accolade.
Judo
is pretty awesome.
Accolades.
I feel like judo probably takes more of a toll on your body though.
For
right?
sure. That's the one
getting
thing
thrown.
that I'm a little apprehensive. Yeah, my body can't. My body's been
one
through
bad
a
fall.
lot.
Gravity, baby.
One bad fall, and it's just like all of a sudden now it's a year that you're not training.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was fighting, I was training and fighting. Even when I wasn't preparing for a fight, I was training 7 days a week. Sometimes double sessions. I would go to fight training in the morning for like 2-3 hours, and then I would teach. My schedule would be Monday through Friday. I would teach class 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I would teach 6 classes a day, 6 days a week. Yeah, nonstop.
Yeah,
Nonstop.
Well, there you go.
So
Wait, hold on. Before we do that, because for some reason the Twitch comments aren't showing on our shared screen here, and Viking Drums wants to ask, what struggles did you face while practicing jiu-jitsu?
Richie.
Richie.
what kind of struggles? Like
And that's Richie,
physical
because these
struggles?
guys want to blow up his
Yeah.
his anonymity in his handle
it's
every
his-
single
it's
week.
his
They're like,
first
that's
name.
Richie.
What do you
It's his
mean?
first name.
He was on the
He was
podcast.
here. He
Yeah.
exposed himself.
So-
I know. I'm just
We
playing.
talked about his drumming.
Yeah.
Challenges, just the challenge of wanting to get better. The challenge of wanting to get better, but not being able to control necessarily like the pace that it happens.
Mhm.
So other than the eye, I guess let me drill on that question a little bit more. Other than the eye, and you having issues in your training, was there something that like almost brought you to the point where you were like, I may stop, or made you feel like
Never.
reevaluate having to continue?
I'm gonna guess never.
Not so much. No, not in that sense. Not that I would like ever give up. Maybe like I may have to stop for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
or I may have to change
Like an injury.
my training habits or something like that. Susanna wrote subdural hematoma. That was the technical term of my
Your eye.
eye condition. Yeah, it was actually it was pushing my eye up and out 3 millimeters.
Did you
It was
notice
pushing
it?
it up 3 meters. Yeah, dude.
You
If
can
I
notice
looked at
it.
you could notice it.
You
If
can
you
notice
looked
it.
like if you looked at me, my left eye was slightly higher than my right.
You're like, why are you
That's
halfway
wild.
surprised?
Yeah.
When
I
it was
first-
subtle, it wasn't.
It was very subtle. It started to affect my vision a little bit. I'd start to get headaches a little. But the body's crazy and how it adapts. Like normally it would totally screw up your vision, but because it happens so gradually, like my eye,
your brain
corrected it.
Fixes
the it's really wild.
Oh, that's wild.
When I first saw that, I was like, subdural hematoma.
No, that
I
was
think
your
they
brain.
had that at the dispensary last
you
week.
dummies. That's
No, you
not the
dummy.
term. It's not the term at all.
She's like, no, you dummy. Why don't you hit your head again?
No, that was your brain bleed from cage fighting. Well,
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, oh, your
Well,
brain was bleeding?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's a different thing.
It's a hematoma.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a big old.
A big old cluster of
Subdural.
blood.
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
intense. That was from what, the knockout? Is that what we're talking about? What is
No, that happened before. That happened. I fought this guy. What the heck was his name? I can't remember his name. He hit me, and it was the beginning of the second round. I was like lighting him up the first round, and he was a southpaw, and I was a little lazy on a jab, and he ended up throwing like a right hook, and it hit like instantly. I knew like the second he hit me, I was seeing double. Like I felt like the hit into the into my eye, and I was seeing double for the rest of the fight. I fought the whole fight with a broken orbital.
Wow.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I kicked him for 2 rounds. Like I low kicked him, body kicked him, head kicked him. I barely threw any punches because I just didn't want to get close enough to get hit.
Yeah.
He couldn't even walk out of the cage. Like he had to be carried out. I ended up winning a decision.
E-Man says, what's your mentality going into a fight? I'm a bad
Oh, that's
motherfucker.
good. Yeah, man.
I'm a bad mucka.
I remember him telling me this shit. And
So I've never really done this in jiu-jitsu, but going into a fight, man, I would shadow box in my apartment. And I would honestly, like, I would talk to myself. Like I would look at myself in the mirror and say, you're a fucking bad motherfucker. Like you're going to kill this dude. This guy has no business being in a fight with you. And I would say that, and I would mean it.
And you don't do that in your jiu-jitsu matches?
No.
Because
it's not a fight to me.
watching you when you go into a match,
you're scary.
you're scary, bro. And I guess it's more because like I know you.
Yeah.
So when I see you go into the ring for a fight, you're like,
well, that's different. You've seen.
I don't know that guy.
People used to say that to me when I'd walk into a cage. They're like, "You're such a calm guy. Like you are an animal inside there. Like who is that?"
But that's why it's so successful.
You have to be. You can't be that person. You'll get hurt. You'll get hurt.
You have to become a monster, bro.
You got to be a monster. And
that's why it's such a balance. I think I was talking to a student about that. I don't know if I was talking to Moises or somebody, but fighters that can never leave that outside of the cage, have real troubles, because you can't be an animal 100% of the time, 24 hours a day. Like, of course not.
No, of course not. But dude, you gotta go in one and hurt somebody if you want to be successful.
You have to, and that's why I didn't really continue fighting. Honestly, I was really good at it, and I fought with really good people. Was competitive with some of the best, fighters in my weight class. But I wasn't a killer. I didn't have that. Like I would talk myself up to do it, but it wasn't real.
Yeah, it was like a, I don't want to call it fake it till you make it kind of thing, but it was almost like kind of in a sense.
I would put myself into a trance, honestly, before fights.
Yeah, because it's not really
there was nothing that could come into my mental focus. So, for example, if I was walking out to a fight and I didn't have tunnel vision, and then all of a sudden I started paying attention to people like cheering for me or something else, then somehow I would get out of that mind frame. I talked to a sports psychologist. He came in to talk to a bunch of the fighters once, and he explained that there's basically 2 systems of the brain, right? Your cortex and the limbic system. The cortex is like your analytical side. The limbic is the emotional. And he says, when you fight, you have to be in the cortex. Like there's no question about it. And if you go from the cortex to the limbic system, there's almost zero chance that any fighter in the world can go back to the cortex. So once you're in the emotional, you're not going back. But if you're in the emotional, sometimes if you start there, you can go into the cortex. But psychologically, if you start in the cortex, go to the limbic, you're not going back again. Yeah,
that's interesting. That makes sense because a lot of people that make them mistakes in their life is because it's emotions that got in the way. Man, can logically think.
You make mistakes.
That's the four walls of The 4 walls of jiu-jitsu.
Explain them, Eli.
Emotional, physical,
Mental.
mental, and then spiritual.
Boom.
Which the last one people tend to argue.
What,
Because,
spiritual?
Yeah, because some people don't go that.
Is that like the Jedi shit?
I feel like we discussed our own
That's
walls
when you all
in,
pray
an
after class.
earlier episode, and those are the walls that I want to revisit.
Not that, you know,
Those
any
are the real
school that
walls.
does that, it's totally cool. That's their thing. But I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe that's the spiritual side. I mean, jiu-jitsu is from Brazil. I know plenty of Brazilian instructors that, you know, pray and incorporate God and you know, Jesus into their school, into their curriculum. And that's
And I feel like
I mean,
even if
I
it's
think that
not,
could be up to
certainly
interpretation
creates another
too.
element.
Yes, exactly. That's
I think
exactly what I was going to say.
I think spiritual can also be like you almost
It
like
doesn't have to be faith based.
it
It's
could be
different for everyone.
It could be almost letting go and like knowing that like
You get
whatever it's
you
gonna
get this
be.
like connection, like
well, you realize you're not going to win
Or
everything.
it's also a
Disconnection.
sense of euphoria.
That's a
I
good
was just
point.
going to say a
Mhm.
disconnection.
That's what it is for
disconnection.
me. When I think of spirituality and jujitsu, I'm like, yeah, I have that. But what it is for me is that
a disconnect.
I don't think about anything else when I'm doing that. And seriously, for me too, and you guys know me for many years, like, you know, I'm super all over the place. Like my mom's super distractible and stuff. So I can barely even read a book without thinking of other thoughts in the background.
Sure.
Jiu-jitsu,
quiets the mind.
yeah, that's all I think
It
about.
does.
It
because
does.
I'm
'cause all
thinking
you
about the
can
grips.
focus-
I'm thinking about the moves. Like that's it. It's the only thing. And there's like almost anything else that I do, I have still that like subconscious voice somehow
Mhm.
saying like just nonsense. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
It
Jiu-jitsu is the only thing where that's literally the sole thing that I think about.
right, and
Yeah.
it sharpens you internally.
It's just
that
relaxing.
you
Like
can't
it's
even
a
explain.
way to like it's quieting in a way,
Mhm.
you know, to my
Force-
mind.
It is.
You're-
I would add, though, it takes a certain level of proficiency to quiet your mind down. You know, a new white belt, it's impossible to do that
Yeah.
because
Sure,
you're in
it's like
constant
fear.
panic.
Yeah. You're scrambled
oh
eggs.
fuck mode.
Yeah.
You know, every second of your life on the
Mhm.
mat. You know, so it does take some time to learn
To
how
build
to
that.
how to do that.
because it's
Because
a mental
The
thing
only way you
too.
can do that is through self-confidence.
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah,
because if
and
you're confident in your
experience.
ability and what you know and your experience, you're able to settle down and be like, "Oh, I know what's going on here. I don't have to react as
Do you think every school
rash."
Only
every
'cause
school
you've been there,
acknowledges
that's
that?
the only way.
Right.
You've literally been there before.
No, Eli.
What happened?
I know. I'm asking him.
Yeah, I missed that too.
I missed that. What?
I said, does every school acknowledge, you know, beyond the physical and the mental?
No, I wouldn't. I would.
No way.
say no.
Like
way.
I feel in our school, like
I mean, I've been lucky to visit some pretty cool schools. You know, not just like locally, but across the country, across the world. Definitely different cultures for sure. I think we have. I'm biased. I think we have something unique as compared to other places. But I've trained in really wonderful places. The team in Portugal, PGT, with Professor Leo Costa. I'll be there next month teaching a seminar. The culture there is amazing. It's different. It's a little more old school. You know, like every student, comes up and addresses the black belt, before they talk to anybody else. They'll wait on the side of the mat. They won't even come on the mat until a black belt calls them on. They won't ask a black belt to roll. They always, will invite you to come on the mat
Different
and to
etiquette,
train.
different
It's a
places.
totally
Is
different
it closer
etiquette.
to
It's not that
karate?
I prefer that. It's just it's different.
Yeah.
And being in that kind of environment, honestly, sometimes it kind of makes you feel special
Mhm.
too, because when you get your black belt, of course you feel proud, but there's also a humbling and leveling aspect of jiu-jitsu because of the community. Even though you're a higher rank and have maybe more proficiency and ability than somebody else, you're still personally like on the same level.
Mhm.
And that's what I love most, is that you could be better than me,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean that you're better than me.
Right. It just means, in this specific thing.
Right.
And that's
right.
it.
And that culture sort of fosters that a little bit.
Mhm.
Maybe in some ways it can foster negativity, where black belts then are like, yeah, I'm king shit, and then they walk
I mean,
around
some
like
people are
that,
just arrogant.
and
you
then
know
they
what I mean?
get mad because I didn't call you out on the mat, and then they take. There's always people that take their power
Mhm.
and position and abuse it in some way.
I mean, it's also conditioning of the scenario which those people live in, you know what I mean? I
Sure.
also think it's like with they grew up with those etiquettes and stuff like that.
Well,
So they
again,
expect
it's
that
all
return.
how you were, like kids, it's all how you were raised.
Yeah.
So, whatever instructor they had fostered that kind of environment, they're generally going to, promote the same kind of thing.
I mean, obviously, like our school has a lot of etiquette, but we also are more laid back,
Absolutely.
I think that adds to, I mean, maybe I'm biased too, but I think that adds obviously to what we have is because not only is we laid back, but we have a group of people that are really pushing us.
It's laid back, but people understand there's a hierarchy and there's a real, position that you have in the school, and that you'll earn your place. Like everybody's welcome, but everyone's also going to earn their spot at that table. You don't just get it. Like you're there, everyone's there, everyone can eat, but it's like you gotta earn your spot to that table.
And I think another thing that I think our school adds to is that we kind of let it be known that you can earn it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And everyone's there to help you get there.
Right.
That's also the caveat. It's not like you got to earn that shit and you're all on your own. You're all by yourself. No, you got to earn it. But guess what? Like you have 150 people here to help you along the way to make sure that you get there. And again, it's on you. You have to also want it. Right. And that's the thing with swimming or anything that you want to be good at or you want to learn or progress. Like you have to want to do it.
Well, it's like any profession, right? It's like when other people see you're just as passionate, whether what level you're at, that's going to help them to want to push you further into it when they see you're just as passionate as the person that put all that work into it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
you get inspired by people.
Yeah.
You get inspired by the people that you respect.
And it re-inspires
you look up to.
When you have people that come on and they're just as passionate, you're just like, oh, it's like you're living it all over again when you get to teach what you
that's why it's very important to create a good culture, because then you create monsters, right? In the same way that if you're
controlled
like
monsters.
a really warm, loving, welcoming person, your children are going to be that way. If you're a hateful racist, your kids are going to be that way. Their kids are going to be that way. So martial arts instructors work the same way. Their students turn out very much similar to them.
Yeah.
It's psychology,
unless they're smart to it and they realize, oh, this person's a piece of shit.
And they want to break break the cycle or whatever. Yeah, that was one of the points I was going to make to what you were just saying before, is that that it comes top down.
Absolutely.
Right? Like your students and your brown and soon to be black belts and stuff don't behave that way.
You gotta set the standard.
Because that's not the way that you run your gym.
No,
so
and it's never anything.
And if they do, they'll be weeded out because they're not going to be.
Yeah.
They're not going to feel like that's not their environment.
More often than not, in my experience, and
you're going to run out of training partners real quick.
It's been rare occasions, man, where I've had to tell people like, this place isn't for you, man. You got to go. A handful.
They weed themselves out because they're like, they're not getting it. And one of the things that I constantly for people listening who are new and whatnot, one of the things that's really important is to realize you can ask Radji questions, but sometimes he's busy. So make sure go find the people that have been there forever.
Well, that's why I rely on you guys. All of the higher belts and the people that are closest to me. Because I want to try to be as accessible to every student as I can, but I'm only one person.
Yeah.
But again, that's why I try so hard to create
and cultivate the environment
and cultivate an environment where you guys also are your own teachers and own instructors. So then you can then pass what I've taught and what you've made your own, to other people. It's important to be able to pass that information, to other people. I say all the time, I talk about moves that I've taught to other people, and I'm like, well, they do it better than I do. That's cool. The shoulder lock that I learned from Jukal. I tell people all the time, like, Eddie does that better than I do. I was like, I taught him that move when he first joined, and he gravitated towards it. He loves it. It's like his move. I know it. I know it well, but I'm like, not as well as he does.
Is that the one that you sit to the side?
Yeah, what's funny? I don't even know if I love it. I just see it there all the time. It's just like
that. And we have touched this point too in a previous episode, is that it's not only it's great for the gym, but it's also self-serving.
Yeah,
when you take these concepts and I think we did it after Sapan's interview and promotion, is we said, well, now take this and start disseminating that information to some of those who are beneath your rank now, right? The white belts and stuff, because you'll see yourself grow technique, sharpness in that technique, confidence,
Sure.
and things. Because now once you're able to teach it, maybe you'll see the mistakes where maybe you don't have it perfectly right, and you're like, oh, that's not right. You figure it out, and then you teach it.
You also learn how to collaborate.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Like as you're teaching,
and then you get the
it,
confidence, and you're like, okay, well, I've taught this 10 times. I know this
I know
move,
this.
and now you're going to start to see yourself
Right.
recognize it, see it, and execute it.
And the
a little
nice
bit
thing
better as
about
well.
jujitsu is you don't have to try to teach anything you don't know. Just show
Yeah.
people what you know.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to
Exactly.
lie. You don't have to
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
anything up. Just
it
say,
could
I
be
don't
the
know,
most
man.
simplest
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It could be
Just
literally
ask.
hip
Someone at the
escaping.
gym knows. If they don't know, someone else
Someone knows.
Just
we'll come
ask.
back to it
Yeah.
next time.
And
yeah,
and that
And if I don't know, I'll tell you. Say, I don't know, but let's troubleshoot it. And
Mhm.
Would you-
we'll, in
We can
that
figure
moment,
it out. Yeah,
I'll tell you, okay, do it to me. And I'll
Mhm.
show you what I would naturally do as a
Right.
reaction.
would you
And then
agree?
we'll come up with something.
Would you agree that the mat time obviously is the most important thing you for jujitsu and
Sure.
for advancing mat time,
Absolutely.
but to maximize that mat time to reflect,
Sure.
like actually spending time with your partners, reflecting about movements, about
Oh, absolutely.
moves. How can you get better?
I always recommend beginner students to have some kind of logbook, a notebook that they write down classes, descriptive messages or whatever of the class.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you go back, you write it shorthand, you don't realize what
you
you
were
wrote
writing,
and what you
yeah.
meant. Right, very descriptive explanations of techniques.
Even draw pictures if you
After
can.
draw pictures if you can. Sometimes people take video. I'm not one of those people. It's like, you can't, video the class. That helps. I used to videotape my rolling sessions a lot at Blue Belt.
Mhm.
Probably for the 4 years that I was
Super
at Blue
helpful.
Belt, I would
Yeah.
I would tape at maybe 3-4 days a week. I just set up an HD camera on the
That's
desk
awesome.
facing the mat, and at the end of the night, I would just watch what I did.
People do that in college, right?
Yeah.
They just
it's very helpful.
Record.
Yeah, film is the best.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a big,
And it doesn't
big
take
tool.
much too.
No, not at all.
Like I don't sit there and study. I don't think any of us like study film of ourselves constantly.
And
like,
you don't
all the
even
time,
need to
but
be
when
an
you watch it a
expert to
couple times,
realize when you watch it again, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
or
Yeah.
just watch someone else's role too. You know?
That
But yeah,
helps absolutely.
you
too.
you watch it
Oh, man.
consume, just consume a little bit, and it helps.
Yeah.
even all right. Well, I would recommend you watch matches at your belt level, but as you progress, you can watch obviously higher level belts and see what they're doing
Yes,
for the most part. But
most of
even
my online or
Is watching
digital
matches. Yeah.
learning is watching live matches.
because you could see where people are struggling, where people are fighting defensively too, and how
Yes.
people get around those defenses.
Yes.
Whereas when you're just doing technique, you see how the concept of the move,
I get
but
it.
it's like it's
But
not
to
the s-
replicate it, it's not.
yeah, it's not the same because it's like obviously you're going. with
Things
the
are
wrong
always
person.
different when you have resistance and somebody
Mhm.
who's not letting you do what you want to do.
Also, you see more of how they got into the sequence to get
Absolutely.
to that position.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're just showing a technique, which is
It's
Uh,
one small area.
kudos to your teaching, obviously, which is great, is you break down like a whole sequence and you show like different avenues to the
Sure.
move that you eventually get to. But even before you get to that move, you're showing like this is the steps from like, all right, you got
This
get
is how
past
we
the
got
guard,
here. Right.
past the legs to side control to, you're basically covering all the different points that we need to.
Sure.
Whereas not all schools do that. Some
No.
schools just show
Just
like
show
a
the
move.
Here's 3 moves.
Yeah.
Practice those.
Yeah.
Don't explain any kind of connection between the moves.
Mhm.
What happens if someone defends that move a little
Right.
bit? How can you then transition to something else or back to that move or make
Mhm.
any adjustment to fix it? It's
You're
just,
not even seeing how they got to that position in the first
And
place.
people can learn that way because just inherent repetition, you're going to get better. But how you provide the material really matters.
Mhm, because sometimes it's like you won't even get into that position forever, and then
Right.
it's like
Right.
I knew the move at one point, but
Right.
because like I didn't see where the sequence was to get to that
Like I know
point.
people that teach very specific sequences in jujitsu, and
Mhm.
it's like, all right, that's really cool, but like, how many times are you really in that position?
Right.
That's so specific and such a minutia of a
Mhm.
of a place in jujitsu. It's like, yeah, you could practice that, but really to spend that much time on such a small, rare occurrence of a position or a
Mhm.
place, like, it's just I don't spend too much time
It's not as practical.
Koreans doing that.
as-
It's not. no.
Yeah.
So we I think we're getting close here to wrapping up. I just want to bookmark and in the future you'll come back on.
Yeah, sure.
We'll keep going
come
through
back
the
next
story.
week and do this.
Yeah, we'd love to do the next
That'd be
week.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll stop. Part 1 of your story will stop at like 2004 and starting to train in the gi, because I want to go over like matches, people you've trained with, influences.
There's a whole bunch more.
So much more.
Yeah, we're like in
So
black belt of
much.
karate.
Yeah.
Starting to do some MMA and stuff.
and
right?
Tremendous
And then-
jiu-jitsu influences.
Yeah, starting to get jujitsu influences, and then I think that we could pick it up from there.
And where honestly, for those out there watching, what we really want to get to is
And thank you, Brian Ross, for your compliment. Appreciate that.
we really want to get into like some of like the philosophy talk we're talking here, because I think that helps us sharpen our training and ensure that we're I think that's something of a challenge that that you have out there for students, where you're not going to give them every single step, because like you said before, it's their jiu-jitsu and they have to learn how to create it for themselves.
Well, the funny thing is if I laid out a blueprint, for jiu-jitsu, like this is what you need to do in every position, the reality is that nobody would follow it.
Right.
Very few would even follow that.
Right.
They'd still look at it and decide to do something different.
Right.
Oh, it says turn left here, but I kind of feel like I'm going to go right today.
Yeah, I think
it's like
it'll be more
we're still
efficient.
going to do that.
Mhm.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense. And again, like I don't want carbon copies. If somebody likes something that I do, like I trained in a school once. I'm not going to name the school. I have friends that train there, very respected, very well-known jiu-jitsu academy. But I went there as a black belt. I rolled probably like 10 rounds with a lot of black belts, maybe trained with like 6 black belts out of the 10 rolls. No kidding aside, 9 out of the 10 rolls were like rolling with the same person.
Well,
Wow.
One after the other. Exactly the same. I felt like I was in Bizarro World. I'm like, does
That is
anybody do
weird.
anything different?
That is
here?
weird.
Like,
Yeah.
wow,
Bunch of
like you're
cyborgs.
trying the same entries, the same grips, the same, like literally the same flow of sequences. I'm
That
like,
is
what is
weird.
going on
Which
here?
I think
And again,
I don't know.
it's for people that want to emulate their instructor and
Yeah.
be like them, but also he's a certain person.
Right.
and
There seems to
you
be
can't
maybe an
be that person.
inflexibility of
You have to be
coaching there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Again,
That is
I don't want to
freaking
sound
weird.
biased, but I definitely feel like there's a wide, like, I see a lot of like things that you teach and a lot of our students,
Mhm.
but I also see everybody has adapted. To
Everyone's
their
got
own game.
individuality. I see it
Right.
all the time. I was talking, I think
Mhm.
I was talking to you.
Mhm.
I think it was you, maybe somebody else, but about people picking up, things about, I think it was with you. We
Mhm.
were talking about Richie
Mhm.
and I'm going to use Richard as an example today. Richie's got
bad, Richie.
amazing pressure. He's developing
pressure.
a really great ability to exert a lot of pressure, not just on top but bottom
Yeah.
also, with his gripping, with his movement. He doesn't stay still. And I kind of laughed. I joke. I'm like, well, I've been smashing Richie since he's a blue belt, and that's true. Like Richie's always
he
been
can
a very
handle it.
good. Richie he can handle it. And there's
Mhm.
certain people that I have to back off on a little
Mhm.
bit, that I can put a little pressure, but then ease up. Richie's the kind of guy that like I can just train with him.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
he's been a fantastic training partner because of that, and
Mhm.
has grown into an amazing training
beast
partner
that he
for me
is.
because of that.
Mhm.
So that's also an important aspect of helping other people,
Mhm.
is that if you want good training partners, then help them.
Yeah. Don't just smash them.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
If you
Like-
want to get better and you want really good, proficient training
Dude,
partners, help them.
I'm
They may
glad-
not help you right now, and that's a selfish thing that people are like, but I
Mhm.
need the work now because I'm a
Mhm.
purple belt and I'm preparing for a tournament.
It's not about
I get that. It's not about that, but watch 2 years from now, that
Mhm.
person is going to be amazing for you.
Mhm.
But a lot of people are too short-sighted about their training.
But I don't even. Yeah, I agree with that. And the thing that I love that you brought this up, I was literally going to say, it's like sometimes when you sacrifice, if you selfishly give up like what and you teach it on to the next person, it just makes you better anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like
There's
like you
nothing, we've
said-
talked about that. There's nothing
Mhm.
that I'm going to keep secret.
Mhm.
I'm going to teach you everything that I know.
Mhm.
Everything that we troubleshoot together. There's nothing that I'm trying to keep for myself or to have some edge over people or for
Mhm.
students. Now we've talked about this too, about me teaching in class. I think Eli, you mentioned that of leaving certain things out and not like giving everything, you know, and there's reasons for that. Number one, we can't just cover everything in class. You know, number two, there's a certain like concept that I need everybody to get, and it's a large class. So like we can't get like super into the micro of the movement. Maybe individually on the side we can. Also, thirdly, I do, you know, I this is how I make my living, and I also teach like private lessons, you know, individually. So that's also like a stream. So it's like if you want the real like nuts and bolts and the real fine details of not just
you're looking for more
technique.
You're looking for more time with you to be able to explain that.
Of
So
course,
to go further,
and it's not like I'm saying if you want to know, you got to buy a private with me. That's not what I'm saying.
Of course not. And
because I'll always share the information.
Even to go further in your point, you actually said this maybe a week or two ago, but you were explaining to people while you know I was the uki, and you're explaining like it's like sometimes you don't explain certain details because sometimes it takes years to just do it,
or
so
I want you to figure it out on your own.
Exactly.
There are times where it's like, again, am I just going to give you the blueprint? Because even if I laid it all out, it doesn't mean that you're going to understand
that's my point.
it.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like sometimes it's like even if you explain, it's going to go over people's heads.
Yeah.
They're not even going to understand it until they've had 2 years in of actual training. Where
It's
they
like
go
talking another language you don't understand.
Right.
You can hear me talk to you and
Right.
hear the words
there-
come out and not know
Yeah, and
the
there's
damn thing
probably
I'm saying.
plenty of times
Do you
where you as a
understand where
professor,
Say the words that come out.
and I'm sure even you as a professor, there's plenty of times where you want to see your brown belt do something that is a white belt on like concept. Like you just want to see him do that basic thing.
Sure.
And that's it for the class. Because you know what? Doing that basic thing could be helping your training partner. The focus you may have on that class for that evening, and they may not even know it, is for a higher belt to work with a white belt on some basic concept.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden now, from that basic concept of working that leads to that conversation with you on the mat,
Absolutely.
or the conversation with another higher belt on the mat that all of a sudden now is raising the level of IQ for the entire school.
Sure.
So pretty interesting.
Yeah.
This is better than Sammy the Bull Show. Thanks, Brian. I don't know
What's
what
the
that
Sammy
show
the
is.
Bull
Yeah,
Show?
what is that show?
He's
I don't
got
know
his
what
own
this
podcast.
Yeah.
Sammy the Bull's got his own podcast.
I heard his podcast is pretty awesome, but
Is it?
ours is fucking better.
Because we adapt and we get
Yeah.
better.
His daughter was on Mob Wives.
Oh my god.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was
I
like
didn't
some
even-
show on
Trash
VH1
TV?
years ago, Trash TV.
Oh,
yeah, I
man.
remember seeing her on it.
Dude, we should
So maybe a low bar to set there for us, Brian Ross, but we're working on it. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. That's
Thank you.
amazing.
We appreciate that.
That's hilarious.
No, but thanks everyone for tuning in this week. It was awesome. We had some of the highest engagement and live viewers throughout the entire podcast that we've had this entire time that we've been
Awesome.
doing the thing.
I feel like I'm
obviously-
melting.
18 weeks.
Very
my hat is soaking wet
Oh,
right now.
dude.
Yeah, we're gonna
It was
wap
all
it
in the last
up.
like 20 minutes. I'm like, I feel like Patrick
God,
Ewing at the
it
fucking
feels
free
like
throw
a
line.
Twain.
Sauna Sesh 1.
It feels like we're twining.
Yeah, it's a great place to wrap it up. You know, we learned a lot about, you know, how Radji started as an athlete, what that looked like for him as a kid, what got him into martial arts, and we're leading kind of right into his experience with martial arts. And then next time we have him on, we'll get into the formation of the academy, and
Love that.
maybe we can get to today. If not, if we can't, even better, we'll do a third, fourth episode. But you know, you'll
Absolutely,
join
man.
us frequently here on the podcast.
Hell yeah.
we
Always
hope,
Love
welcome,
that.
bro.
of
Yeah,
course.
He's fam.
Again, the
Stop
podcast would not be possible without Radji Barrett Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Check him out at
That one's for
Radji Barrett
Emmanuel.
on Instagram and at RadjiBarrettJiu-Jitsu.com. Don't forget to check us out at Adapt. I do that every single week. Check us out at Adaptive Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram and at AdaptiveJiu-Jitsu.com. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. And although all of you have personal lines to us, you give us the feedback every single week. We love it. It's awesome. If you could just also drop that in the comment section of YouTube, that helps us out a lot on YouTube itself. So
Write some Google reviews for the school as well. Any students out there that haven't written any reviews, please do. Get the word out there. Tell your friends. The best
Tell your
form of
friends.
advertising is
Hey,
word of
Keith.
mouth and referrals. We have great people in the school, great energy, and the only way to keep that is to have the friends and family of those existing people. So
Hell yeah.
keep bringing them in. Very thankful for everybody that's been helpful and adding to the student body of our academy. Really appreciate it.
yeah.
Hell
That's
yeah.
awesome. So again, this has been episode 18. We love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, Radji Barrett Jiu-Jitsu Academy. If you're cool, you can train here and Adaptive Jiu-Jitsu. Adapt or get tapped. We will see you guys next week.
Boom.
Later, Academy. If you're cool, you can train here and Adaptive Jiu-Jitsu. Adapt or get tapped. We will see you guys next week.
Boom.
Later, Academy. If you're cool, you can train here and Adaptive Jiu-Jitsu. Adapt or get tapped. We will see you guys next week. Academy. If you're cool, you can train here and Adaptive Jiu-Jitsu.